Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Non Sequitur Nerds. Tonight, coming soon to a game platform near you, we're going to be talking early access and Kickstarter type games. But as always, I am Tim, joined by Ian. How's it going, buddy?
Hey, we're going pretty good. Welcome back to season 2 of Non Sequitur Nerds. We are happy to be back and joining you this fine winter's eve, I guess.
Or whenever you're listening to it.
Yeah, whenever you're listening to it. Anyway, so yes, thank you for joining us. We are back, obviously. So tonight
Or
we are going to be
are
talking about.
we? I mean, we are because we're here doing the thing.
Right, and I'm not dead, as far as I know.
I mean, you're dead on the inside, but aren't we all?
I'm a ginger, so I never was alive on the inside.
It's true. That explains the smell. Anyway.
He's pretty accurate. Anyway, so we're talking Kickstarter, early access, beta, whatever you want to call them games tonight. So what we're referring to is a trend in the gaming industry right now, especially among indie studios and things like that, necessarily AAA titles. Where you go out and purchase access to a game. One of the most prevalent and well-known of them being Valheim. Valheim itself is technically still in early access. It is an early access game. Yes, it is an early access game. You paid about $20 for it, and I believe the last time that I looked, which was several months ago, mind you, they have sold over 10 million copies.
Yeah, like we did a whole episode on it in season 1. Check out season 1 of Non Sequitur Nerd. But yeah, it's like that. It kind of blew up out of nowhere and just like kept exploding for a while. I mean, it's kind of, it hasn't been in the news lately, but I think that's because it's. I mean, there's been a little bit of news.
We
but
say
not
that.
not as prevalent as it once was.
We say that, but this week, not to date ourselves, they have actually announced some new content updates. They're adding ice caves, and the ability to build inside of ice caves. So you can
finally
actually
build the cave.
Yes, you can build a cave.
The thing I was always trying to do anyway.
Yes. Edit as well as additional content, armor, new set pieces, new ability, not necessarily abilities, but because there are no abilities in the game. But they are expanding the content of the game itself. So,
awesome.
Yes, for those of you who like Valheim, which we are included in that, you can go and check out the. It is on the public test servers right now, so they haven't released it quite yet. But they will be having new content coming out soon.
Awesome.
So, anyway, yes, early access games. Valheim is one of the biggest ones known currently, but you may also remember that a known game called Subnautica was also an early access game.
Or there was it was from an indie studio. I'm not even sure if they're around anymore, but there's this game. God, what was it? Minecraft. Was originally an early access game.
I don't know that I've ever heard of that one. What's that one about?
That was way too erotic, Ian. For those of you that aren't watching the video, if you want a nice little treat, Ian just licked a totally soda bottle on camera. But no,
yeah, sorry, the side of the bottle was leaking, so.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, I have to hide the label so we don't get hit with copyright.
Yeah, that's totally the same bottle you just licked.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just let me get my Gatorade out here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, Gatorade with convenient cork.
A Gatorade with a cork is actually the best way to drink it because it ensures freshness.
Yes, of course, it's gonna be fresh for at least an.
And for those of you tuning in, you may or may not occasionally see my brother appear in the background because he is kind of hanging out in my bedroom listening to random YouTube videos while we record tonight's session. So, depending... What?
YouTubeception.
Yes, exactly. So occasionally he may pop in or out of the video frame. It depends on how the green screen application decides it wants to pick up on people. We think in an okay location, but we're not 100% sure. Yeah. Anyway.
Maybe.
But
yeah, early access. It's a unique concept because you're effectively And for most games, the earlier you buy into access, the cheaper it is. The longer you wait, the closer it gets to their final retail release. Usually, not always, but usually. But I mean, it's an interesting concept that you're effectively paying some amount of money to experience and play a game as it's being actively developed. So it's kind of
Right.
like being a beta tester for a game, except you're paying to do it. Um, but
Well,
like
I mean, that was the whole concept behind Subnautica's early access releases. Like they explicitly displayed a message on screen when you logged into the game. It's like, this is an early access game. If there are bugs, please report them to us.
yep, which is kind of
So
neat that
like,
the community gets to take an active part in helping to shape and develop a game. And even beyond reporting bugs, like there's been a lot of early access games where it's like, well, hey, players said they didn't like this mechanic or they didn't like the way we did this, so based on feedback, we're changing that to be more in line with what players are wanting. Um, so I mean, it's neat that like as somebody who's bought into it, I mean, obviously you've got the financial interest vested in it, but then you've also have that vested interest of I helped make this. Even if you weren't the one sitting there entering in the code, doing the art, making the music, you had an active role in helping this game get developed, which is a really it creates that sense of ownership, which kind of will keep people bought in the long term, and they get excited about the thing, and they will tell their friend, "Hey, you should check out this game. It's in early access. I've been playing it. I really like it." I think that's kind of how Valheim was for us. I mean, we heard about it in the news, and we're like, you know what, let's check this out. And I mean, for a while, we were spending way too much time on that game for a good
yeah,
while.
we
Um,
really were.
yeah,
In point of fact, I still have a an online server that's up and running and available for private access. So, people still play the game, and it's
sure.
still fun. Like they're still releasing content. It's still an interesting game, and they still have a lot more that they can do with
Oh
the
yeah,
game. But where things are slightly different for Valheim is that they are actively developing against it. So there is content that is coming out. I wouldn't say regularly, but at least they are providing updates on
yep,
content. One of the other games that Tim and I have played is Raft.
yep,
So Raft was an early access game, and it was a very basic concept if you
yeah,
think about it. It's literally, what do you do when you are stuck on a 4x4 square of a raft in the middle of the ocean
yep.
with a shark trying to eat your ass? And God, I mean, we spent so many hours in that
Dude, oh
game.
my god, yeah.
What's the ship? The Sharknado
The
5 is
Sharknado 5. There was no
yes.
Sharknado 1 through 4. It's just our first ship was the Sharknado 5.
No. There was a Sharknado 1 through 4. They were just movie versions. Now our ship is the Sharknado 5.
Yes.
So the Sharknado 5 is our gigantic, like self-sufficient raft.
Like literally, we have it set up to where it's super wide, but we have capture nets going along the entire like length of the ship. So pretty much anything that's even remotely close to us, because yeah, we even had those like the wings that kind of came off of the side that extended
Yep.
past the ship. Anything that comes even remotely close to us, it's gonna collect. Like we have to. God, it was what, like every 5 minutes of that, empty all of our capture nets because it couldn't physically hold anymore. We
Yeah, like
literally,
we
for a
literally
while,
had
were like
to.
throwing stuff away because like we have like 40 full stacks of this item. We don't need any more plastic right now, and we're just chucking stuff overboard as we're
Yeah.
going along.
Yeah, like the one of the best things they did was they released some additional content for like the titanium and like the storage lockers because
Yep.
we were filling up all of our chests.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So
Yeah,
we
we
had to
were.
start building storage lockers in order to fill up all of our stuff.
Yep.
Um, and it was entirely self. It's been a while since Tim and I have played, but I think maybe next content release, which
Oh
we're
yeah.
hoping soon,
Yes. I'm
we're
hoping.
going to play. But point being, it was one of those games where I had heard about it. I told Tim about it, and we kind of got interested in it. And even your sister and brother-in-law
Yep.
got interested in it as like just like this very chill kind of
And it really is very chill. No.
I mean there's multiple modes to the game. There's
Yep.
there's a creative mode. There's like a pacifist mode where like the shark doesn't try to eat you the entire time.
Yep.
And then there's survival mode where like you actually have to like eat, drink, not get eaten by a shark.
Yep.
Um So like there's these modes that like help you with your gameplay, and if you play on like pacifist mode, it's actually kind of fun, like
Yeah.
very chill and very fun.
Yep.
Um, which is kind of what we built the Sharknado 5 off of.
Yep.
But anyway, it was an early access game, and it was a lot of fun for us, and we've had a lot of fun with it, and
Oh
we're
God,
very much
yes.
looking forward to the next content release. But it's still technically listed as an
Yeah.
early
Early
access game, in
access.
spite of being out for what, 2 years?
It's been a while. I mean that's the thing with kind of the downside to early access games is if they go into early access super early, it may be a long time before you see a finalized release of that game. But you get to, the earlier you get in, you get to go along for the whole ride of seeing every time they put out new content, every time they make changes, every time that there are any kind of updates or anything, you get to go along for it. And again, like I said, typically the earlier you get in, the cheaper it is. So I mean, you've kind of got that. You can get the game at a lower price, but it may be a while before they add anything, or it may be a while before the game gets released. Versus, the flip side of that. Again, I'm generalizing. You pay later, you're going to pay more, but you're going to be closer to the actual finalized release. Then if you wait till it's
Right.
actually released, you're going to be paying full retail price, and you get the game as it is. There might be some updates, there may be some new content, but typically at that point the game is done. Most of those developers are going to kind of take a step back and go, all right, everybody take some time off. Our game is done. They may work on an expansion, they may work on DLC, or that may just be, all right, cool, the game's done. We're moving on to something else. You never know. I mean, but that's the nature with anything, really. But
Right.
yeah, like early access games. I mean, a lot of it started off back in the days of Kickstarter. I mean, a Kickstarter obviously is still around. They still do quite a bit of stuff like this. But like back then, typically it was, hey, back this game. This is our proof of concept. Here's maybe a video. Here's some screenshots of it. You bought it, and then like some of the games may be like, well, hey, you'll get the game 2 days early before release, or well, you can get into a beta program exclusive to backers. But typically with most Kickstarters, you didn't actually see the actual product. You weren't actually able to experience it firsthand until it released. And it was one of those like, all right, well, they may be asking for $1 million for this game, and you may be super excited about it. But if they don't hit that $1 million, obviously you get your money back if it's not funded. But that game will never come to fruition. Versus a lot of games now, there are still games that do via Kickstarter. But I know Steam is a really big one for early access, to where if it goes up on early access, there's at least some playable version of it that you get to go along with. So I mean, you buy in and typically you get that experience immediately. So, I mean, it's kind of neat to kind of see games shift to interactive active development, if that if that phrase makes any sense at all.
Kind of.
You get what I'm
Well,
saying,
so
though.
yeah, I mean, some of this conversation stems from a recent article that I had read in the news about a developer that they originally started with a Kickstarter. They had set a goal, but they didn't hit their goal. So they were kind of like, yeah, I guess we're not going to do this. But then they were backed by an outside investor for a few $100,000. I think like they invested like $200,000 or something like that.
Okay.
But then the article came out to say that like the primary developer, like the head of the studio, wound up like buying a Tesla with the funds and
Oh.
then like using it for some of his personal stuff. And then they shut down, like literally deleted all of their social media presence.
Oh.
And so, like, no one except maybe a select few could try to get a hold of them. And then they weren't returning like emails or anything like that. And so, like, it was one of those occasions where it's like risk reward type thing. Like,
Right.
I don't know that I feel bad for this outside investor that decided to donate, $200,000 to this thing, because it's kind of like to me it's the same concept as the stock market, right? Like there's no guarantee on a return on investment here.
Yeah.
But that's outside of like that's literally a personal investment. Like there's no entity in between them that's
Right.
helping govern
How that money is actually
like some of
spent.
the like how this money's sent, how the policies are dictated and whatnot. Like it's literally, it would be the same thing as me going to you, handing you a check for $200,000 and saying,
Can you
"Here you
do that?
go." and then me like waiting for you to do something, which is basically what I do with Tim all the
I
time.
mean, to be fair, if you gave me
It would be
200,000, there's not much I wouldn't do. I'm just gonna say it.
right.
I have no shame.
We know. Um, so point being though is like this is outside of the boundaries of any kind of like terms of service or anything like that. As far as like, um, oh, I didn't hear the cork pop. I was kind of sad.
I'm sorry. Let me reposition my Gatorade.
There we go. There's the cork pop.
Ah, yes, classic yellow Gatorade. That's what this is.
Lemon lime.
Yes.
Fruity punch.
Classic Gatorade flavor.
Machaim.
Mazel tov.
Slancha.
Lunchable to you too, yeah.
Anyway, so there is a level of risk reward to these types of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where, you want to invest outside of a known entity like Kickstarter or GoFundMe or one of those things. Like there are boundaries in terms of service as far as Kickstarter goes. I've kickstarted a couple of things. Nothing like really major. Like I've never donated a significant amount of money to some of these things.
Right.
In point of fact, actually, one of them has never borne fruit. But the terms of the Kickstarter was, unless they delivered a product, they don't get my money. So I've technically never paid anything to them.
Gotcha.
I pledged money and said, if you give me your product, I will give you money. But they have never, they've not delivered on it. So I've never had to actually like
physically
give them anything. Right. And it was like $10 anyway. But point being,
I think the last Kickstarter I did was actually for a tabletop game. Anybody listening is familiar with the Starfinder game system. There was a what was I going to say? There was a fan made like open source kind of spin off of that called Grimmer Space, where it was a horror like campaign and setting using the Starfinder rules, which I'm like, oh, that'd be really neat for making games in. But I did like the all in, where it was like every source book they're going to come out with, all the rule books, all the map books, everything. And I mean, obviously, we touched on this before, the last 2 years, everything that's gone on, it's taken a little while to get that stuff delivered. But I mean, I've got the map book has been physically delivered to me, which is one of the coolest map books ever, and lots of PDFs of stuff. But now that things are kind of slowly returning to normalcy, that stuff will be coming out. But I mean, I've done a few early access games on Steam. I've done I've a couple Kickstarter games. I can't even remember the last Kickstarter. No, I take it back. The last Kickstarter, I don't remember if it was Kickstarter or something similar. Shenmue 3 was the last one that I backed, just because I knew.
Check out the Shenmue anime available now on Crunchyroll.
Yep.
Crunchyroll, if you're listening, we're a fan of yours.
Oh, absolutely. Just saying, Crunchyroll.
Anyway, we're throwing business your way.
I mean, we'll take Raid Shadow Legends at this point.
Anyway, moving on.
Yep. But no, I mean, and kind of touching on, I'd mentioned tabletop games and Kickstarter. I mean, just last year alone, I know an IP that you are a big fan of. They had, let me get the numbers here. The Avatar role-playing game was one of the highest Kickstarters, netting in just under 10 million.
Let's clarify here. We're talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yes, not the big blue people.
Not James Cameron Blue Bunny's Avatar.
So yeah, Avatar: The Last Airbender. It was a tabletop game. Their Kickstarter just under 10 million. Now keep in mind, especially like for indie games, to make $10 million on a released game, you did good. They made 10 million just in people saying, "I want you to make this." That's not even including any after release sales. That's 10 million that they got from people that just wanted them to make the thing.
So that's where I think some of these things, like some of these rules and restrictions, come into play and things like that. So some of the early Kickstarters that I backed were one of those things where it's like, I pledge my money to you when you deliver the product to
Yep.
me, or when you deliver a prototype to me,
Right.
like
Or
something.
when at the very least production starts. I know a lot of them do that,
Right,
or when they start production, you are paying for it
right.
because part of the money
And
is
they
going into the production costs, which makes sense.
correct, but there's some things out there, and again, which is where kind of some of the impetus of this conversation comes from, is these people or whatever that are saying, you give me money and I will make this thing, but I'm not going to guarantee that I'm making the
Right.
thing.
Yeah, that's where it
The
gets a
example that I'm
little
talking about
dicey.
Right. The example that I'm talking about is in this case where a publisher, I'm sorry, not a developing studio, started a Kickstarter for a game. It was very ambitious. It was like a Minecraft advanced RPG type thing.
I think I might
I
know which
don't,
game you're
I don't,
talking about.
yeah, I don't know the full details. Anyway, they said for like 500K, and I'm picking a number out of the air, for example, for 500K we will make this game. And they didn't hit their goal. People were still interested, but they didn't hit their goal. They only got like halfway there. And then some external investor said, all right, I'm really interested. I've got money. Here you go. The then several months later, the entire company's social media disconnected, like disappeared, was deleted. Their Discord server went offline. Like they just vanished. And you come to find out that their like lead developer had purchased a Tesla. He had, made some extravagant purchases with money and whatnot.
Just
And so you find out
disappeared.
and then he just went to grounds. Like he disappeared.
Yep.
So it's now like who's at fault here? Well, in my mind, this external developer that or external party that donated 250,000, like that was their investment.
Yeah.
Like that's a risk that they took. To me, it's no different than me going, "Hey, Facebook, I kind of like what you're doing. I'm going to invest. I'm going to buy $250,000 of your stock and hope that I get my money back."
Right.
There's no laws or rules governing this because it was really just like a person to person investment.
Yeah.
It was me. I gave an example a second ago, but basically it's me. It's the same as me going, "Hey Tim, here's $200,000. Make sure that I get my money back."
I'm having some deja vu. I feel like you had this exact thing. You said this exact thing like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, I did. But
Okay.
point being,
Yeah. That's kind of what it boils around is. In cases like that, yeah, it is a risk reward, and even same thing. Even if you go through directly through Steam and you buy the game, that developer may see that game to fruition. They may go all the way through, have a final release, everything's hunky dory. Or the flip side of that, that game may be early release, and the company may go, you know what, we just don't feel like doing this anymore. And then all you have access to is a partially finished game that will never see completion. There was one, and the name escapes me, but it's odd that you brought up that example of that game that was Minecraft with RPG elements, because there was another game that I bought early access into, but it was directly through them, and it was pretty much the same thing. It was a Minecraft style world, a voxel generated world with like heavy RPG elements, and like I played it and I was super impressed with what they did. Now, and keep in mind this particular development studio is it's a husband and wife. It is literally a two-person studio. They haven't released any major updates or anything the longest time, and I mean they even went media silent for like 2 years. But like every so often I'll see it pop up. Somebody say, "Oh my God, they posted on their social media. They put up a new screenshot of a new playable race." Um, but beyond that, like to my knowledge, the game still hasn't actually had an actual final release yet. If I could find the name, I'd love to go into it and look. But that's like Ian said, that's just the nature of early release stuff. Is it is a risk and reward. You may put that money in, you may get a really good deal on that game, or you may buy into a product that you think is going to be the next, number one selling game of all time, and it may never come out. Or it may come out and might not be what you thought it was. Or, it may come out, you may really enjoy it, but nobody else does, so it doesn't sell very well, it doesn't get any future support. Um, but it's still it's that, like I said at the top of the show, it's that buy-in, it's that sense of ownership that you contributed money to something. that you're watching it grow. I mean, and it may grow and die, it may grow and flourish, it may grow and just be, eh. You never know.
But I have to qualify that though in saying that it in these cases, it is very much like the stock market. You have no guarantee of investment. So having a mindset of, I bought in, I own this thing, like I've contributed to it, like it's my baby now, is kind of misleading in a sense because there is no guarantee that the company or whatever it is that you bought into is going to be successful.
Yep.
Now, if you invest in something like if you buy Microsoft stock, as an example, you're probably gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Like you may win, you may lose some days, but in the long run, you hold on to that stock. I doubt Microsoft's gonna go away tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty safe bet.
Same thing with like Apple or Google or really kind of any of those Fortune 500, Fortune 50 companies. Like you buy into their stock, they're not going away anytime soon.
So
these are very much risk-based investments, and it is very much an investment because there's no guarantee on return. So sorry, Tim, I keep interrupting you. Please go ahead.
Quick aside: the game I was referencing to a little bit ago was a game called Cube World. I just looked it up. It is now actually available for early access on Steam. I'm trying to see when the last time any meaningful updates to it was. Of course, nothing on their website. So it has a date on it. But yeah, Cube World. It looks like it was 2019 is when they actually put it up for early access on Steam. Still, oh no, it is no longer considered an early access game. It is just a game you can purchase on Steam. As of September 30th of 2019.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was a really, really fun game, really unique idea. Lots of customization. Really, I mean, it was Minecraft art style, but it was Minecraft in a 3D 8-bit kind of aesthetic, which I thought was really unique.
I mean, isn't that basically Terraria?
Kind of, but I mean, Terraria is not really 3D. This is actually a full 3D voxel world. Man, yeah.
So, yeah.
Actually, kind of interesting. But I mean, case in point.
Right. So, I mean, if we look at early access and things like that, there's very obviously a risk reward thing going on there.
It's kind
now,
of
you're not going to see
tonight.
Right. You're not going to see a lot of AAA titles like Call of Duty or Apex Legends or
because they know those games are
Halo.
fun and they know they're going to sell.
Right. You're not going to see a lot of early access. Maybe you're going to get like what Tim had talked about, I think maybe at the beginning of this, where it's like a week ahead of time where you're subscribed to like Game Pass, you get early access to a finished game. But that's different than early access, where like early access to a beta or a pre-beta game.
I say a lot of these games is early access to an alpha build. I mean, call it what it is.
I mean, if we look at one of the more famous examples is Grounded, which is by
Rare, isn't it?
Obsidian Entertainment. Obsidian Entertainment, which is a Microsoft-owned studio. Obsidian Entertainment released Grounded as an early access game or a beta game that people then like got to experience, they got to play, they got to give feedback on. Again, the same thing goes with things like Subnautica Below Zero. Both of those games were released as early access games, and you could submit feedback to the developers on it, but you couldn't necessarily like get your money back for like critical flaws or bugs or things like that. So
or if you just didn't like the way the game developed, and if it changed into something different in its development cycle, you already bought into it. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, there's that's really kind of like the point is like there is obviously a risk reward thing going on here where you want to invest in a game you want to invest in something that's very clearly and obviously a early access game, you're going to have to accept some of the consequences of that. Like the game may never come out of early access. The game may never wind up being going anywhere beyond just a Kickstarter.
Yep.
It could never be beyond just a concept. Like, don't get me wrong, like Tim and I are not like character designers or virtual designers or anything like that, but I'm pretty sure I can muddle my way through Blender and make some
I'm barely a
cutscenes.
video editor.
Right. Like I'm pretty sure I can figure out in a few months' time how to do like Blender and make a couple of characters or
Yep.
whatnot and make something look pretty and claim that it's a Kickstarter and then walk away with money. I don't have to guarantee that I'm gonna deliver you. Like I'm delivering you a concept. So
But I think Kickstarter does have a lot of protections in place for that kind of stuff. But like
relatively speaking.
direct purchase of early access games, that's a whole nother subject. Because like again, early access games on Steam, you purchase, you get at least something immediately. But that may be the developer may go, you know what, I just don't think there's not enough people buying into this, or I just don't want to do this anymore, or I can't afford to pay my staff, and they may just walk away from it. But I mean, that's the nature of it. Is if you like an early access game and you feel confident in it, give it a shot. Worst case scenario, you're out some money. Best case scenario, you help develop a game that you legitimately like. Even if it's not a bestseller, even if it's not, a Hall of Fame game, award-winning game, if you like it and you put money into it, enjoy it. And I mean, that's something that we've said repeatedly on the show, is if you like something, awesome. If it's not for everybody else, don't get down on it. I mean, come
Right.
on. Some people like Thor
I mean,
games.
yeah. Jay, yeah. I mean, yeah, we could go into a lot of things that people like that other
Are
people
terrible.
like that other people don't like. Or it was actually interesting. Somebody in my Final Fantasy 14 community once told me, when we were talking about, I can't remember what it was, but it was some game expansion. I was like, well, it was relatively fun. They were
Yeah.
like, no, it's like this. Oh no, we were talking about Cowboy Bebop, the live action Bebop. Like, well, I mean, it's like relatively fun. They're like, no, like this universally sucks. I'm like,
No, I
but
enjoyed
that's
it. I
like
enjoyed it, and it was
right.
legitimately
My
sad
my
when it got canceled.
my response was basically the Big Lebowski's of, well, like that's your opinion, man.
I mean, pretty much.
Like I can like something and you can not like something. That's my right to do that. Anyway, but it the context of the conversation was it kind of turned me off to this person, and like in and of its entirety, like anytime he posts something on Discord, I'm like, wow, you're a dick. Before I even like read what it is that he posts, I'm just like immediately like, oh look, this person posted.
Ignore.
He's a dick. All right,
Yep.
let's see what it is that he said. Anyway, point being was, yeah, so early access games and Kickstarter games and things like that, they are very much a risk reward type thing, and it's entirely up to you as a consumer to weigh what it is that you want to do. You
Absolutely.
can invest in these early access games through Kickstarter and hope for the best. I would personally, this is my personal opinion here, advise that you wait until they hit something like like Steam or Game Pass or something
Yep.
like that, where you are not necessarily paying extra money, but you have the opportunity to get something in
Right.
return.
Absolutely.
Like Steam at least has you get something
Right. Even if
playable
it's just
that you
an
can
early demo, an early alpha, you're getting something at least,
right. You're
and you're
getting
getting it immediately
something.
upon purchase.
Right. Kickstarter, on the other hand, where it is entirely like risk reward based, you can go, this thing looks interesting. I'm going to pledge $20 and hope that they have the next greatest Settlers of Catan expansion.
Well, like I like I had mentioned earlier tabletop games. Tabletop games, there have been a lot of them on Kickstarter that have gotten funded and end up being just flops. But then there's been others that have came out and, like, as an example, I kickstarted both the Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2 board game.
Shocker.
Yeah, I know, right? Me back a Ghostbusters thing? What? But no, I'm sorry. I only backed the second one. I missed the backing on the first one, but I ended up buying the first one. But the second one, I went all in on it and got like the super deluxe collector's edition. And I have it. It's sitting right over there. I've played it twice. I've played it twice because it is definitely a. While it is obviously a multiplayer game because there are a minimum of 4 Ghostbusters. It's best played with a group of people, but I don't always have a lot of my gaming.
We are also smack in the middle of a goddamn pandemic, so getting people together is still problematic.
There's that, and there's the ever-present. A lot of gamers, when they want to sit down and play an easy multiplayer game, they either want to play something that's split screen or they want to play something that has simple rules like Uno. They don't want to play a nerd board game.
Reverse.
Exactly. I love nerd board games, but there's so many people that are just so stubborn that they won't learn, or at the very least even listen to a slightly more complex rule set. But I digress.
Well, I digress. Let us remember that as of D&D 3.5, elf farts are not muffled.
I'm glad you remembered that meme because they have no body hair below the elbows or below the eyebrows. Wow.
Below the eyebrows.
My Gatorade is kicking in.
Yes. As of D&D 3.5, elves do not have hair below the eyebrows. So
below the elbows.
They have no muffled farts.
Anyway, yeah, for those of you that don't recognize that meme, I'm sorry.
Anyway, so yes, I think we're getting at time here. So let's we digress into multitudes of different non sequiturs at this point. Kickstart at your own risk. Like it's really one of those things. Like you can like something and you can kickstart it, but be understanding that kickstarting is at your own risk. You're probably safer to invest in something like a Game Pass or a Steam early access game.
Now we're not knocking Kickstarter. I just want to say that these are just our personal opinions.
Right. And this is based upon the fact that there is no necessarily guarantee on investment on a Kickstarter. Now that said, in my experience, that I have kickstarted a few things, and I've not actually had money taken from me until production has begun.
Yep. Same thing. So I have had subpar final products. I will say that. But I have not had any loss of funds and undeliverance of a final product. But I have had, again, subpar final products, quite a few.
But that said, I've also never invested more than like $10. So
there you go.
That's entirely up to you. Anyway, so please invest mindfully. Be aware of what it is that you're doing. If you're going into something, if you're going into something like a Steam, like Steam or something like that, be aware of the terms and conditions.
Yes,
you may not necessarily wind up with a complete game at the end of it. Now there are some studios where people are like Valheim, like Iron Gate, like they keep putting out content. Great, cool. I've got my $20 worth.
Oh, absolutely.
Very much so. Like I've got my $20 worth.
Absolutely.
Subnautica. I've got my $20 worth.
Yes.
And Subnautica Below Zero is on Game Pass. So
I need to check out Below Zero.
I've got my money's worth because I'm already paying for other things. So point being is like just keep a kind of an eye out on what it is that you're investing with, and personal opinion here, don't be butthurt if it doesn't pan out, because that's the nature of Kickstarter or those types of things. keep an eye on those terms of service. Keep an eye on what it is that you're investing in. This
Absolutely.
is an investment. It
Yes.
it is the same thing as putting money into the stock market. You have no guarantee that you are going to get back what you put in.
Very true. Very true.
And that's really all that I've got for that.
Did you put your soapbox away, Ian?
I'm putting my soapbox away.
But no, to sum up, I agree. I mean, early access games can be a great thing. They can also be heartbreaking. They can also be a financial loss to you if the game either doesn't come out or doesn't come out to what you expected it to be. But again, and we've said this multiple times on the show, enjoy what you enjoy. If you feel like tossing some money towards an early access game, towards a Kickstarter game, towards a whatever early funding thing, if you feel confident in it, do it. It's ultimately
Yep.
it's your choice. These are just our opinions.
Right. So anyway, thank you for joining us tonight. I think that's going to do us
I
in
think
for
so.
the evening. We appreciate you joining us. As always, you can catch us on anchor.fm, which is our primary hosting platform, which feeds out to multiple hosting sites, including Spotify, which they are owned by,
Yep.
Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and several other different podcasting platforms. You can also catch us on youtube.com/non-sequitur-nerds, facebook.com/non-sequitur-nerds as our primary social media site, as well as twitter.com/non-sequitur-nerd. That is
Singular.
no singular, no S, because of Twitter's limitation on characters for
Yep.
usernames.
Sadly,
So, with that, I think we are going to be done for now.
I think
And we
so.
hope, yes, and we hope to catch you next time on season 2 of Non Sequitur Nerd. Thank you for joining us. We love you always, and we appreciate you joining us. We hope you have a good evening, afternoon, morning, whatever you're listening to us on. We hope you tune in next time. Thank you again.
Absolutely.
So, as always, for Non Sequitur Nerds, I am Ian, and that is some jackass named
Tim. Good night, everybody.
Good night.